pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you so much. Any questions? First of all, we have a few people that are out on vacation. So Mr. Lee is out on vacation. So if we have any questions,
You can get those to me, and then I can
Okay.
get in contact with him.
Thank you. I know
He's decided to take some great advice of when you go to national parks, you don't have cell phone service.
Oh,
It's a great way to go away.
good for him. Because I know he usually waits to the end of the
Yes,
year
he
to
does.
take his, so some much-needed vacation time. Any questions on the consent agenda?
Chairman, I wanted to bring something to everybody's attention real quick. We will have, on number 12, you'll see Financial Matters, tab 6. This is where we have a placeholder for our final cleanup budget amendments. So we had to have all purchases. Mr. Runyas, today was the day where all purchases have to be POs, have to be written today, correct? Tomorrow? And tomorrow. The 8th, so the day actually of the meeting, so, yes. Yeah, so you guys will see the final budget amendment because on Thursday, we were giving our departments and schools until the very last day possible to issue POs and requisitions, so. Apologize for not being there, nothing being hidden, it's just so that with this is the last meeting we have before it goes before budget and Health and Ed and County Commission to be approved for this year. So you'll see that on Thursday. That's all that I wanted to bring up.
Thank you. So we'll have, if there are no further questions on the consent agenda, so we'll have Rutherford Proud recognition on Thursday night. Number 8.
All right, number 8, Human Resources, tab 2, so approval of job description for Director of Human Resources, and that is attached to tab 2. Really what that person will be involved with is helping grow our Human Resources Department, and so our Human Resources Department, led by Dr. Anthony right now, not only does all onboarding, also does insurance and benefits, and then Dr. Anthony, Kelly Chastain, and Dr. Chastain and myself do all principal observations, so this allows us to have a little bit more workload spread out across our department.
Any comments or questions? And we're going to talk about the salary scale.
Yeah, sorry, I've got the next one too, the approval of the job description for Deputy Superintendent. And so we talked about this at our board retreat several other times as well. So not somebody that is over assistant superintendents, but somebody that would be right directly under the director of schools, would report to the director of schools, but would serve to help with the day-to-day management, especially and serve as an intermediary between discipline, bullying, special projects, all those different types of things. And so they wouldn't necessarily they wouldn't be over curriculum, wouldn't be over construction, wouldn't be over HR or budget, but they would help serve the day-to-day type of things that happen on a daily basis.
And do special projects.
Special projects, yes. We have a lot of those, especially with zoning coming up, 3 additions and potentially a high school. That's a lot in our departments.
Any questions? The classified and certified salary scale.
So this has already come before the board, and this is just a much easier, colorful version to read than the bazillion pages of spreadsheets that we had originally. I thank you, Brian, for your work on this. This also has all of the positions that we have currently are on this, that you'll see the R100 through R121. Originally, we only had a couple positions, or not a couple, we had several dozen, but this spreads out all the different positions that we have across. No numbers have changed, no budgetary information has changed. It is strictly just the salary schedule in a much easier to read format.
This is great.
But yes, much improved.
Thank you so much, Mr. Runyon. Number 9.
Number 9, legal tab 3. So the first one we have is renewal of a lease agreement with Smyrna Parks and Recreation. Ms. Ridley, is there anything you want to add to Smyrna Parks and Recreation? I know this is an ongoing lease that we have.
Yes, we've had this lease with them for multiple years, and they're just asking for a 1-year extension.
Renewal of the contract with the Coca-Cola Company.
Yep, and you see multiple, we have several that are coming available for renewal of contract right now. It is Smyrna, Rockville, and Siegel. I would anticipate whatever vendor or other high schools use, you seeing more of these as the contract renewals continue to hit this time of the school year. So this used to be it's still a huge revenue source for our schools. It used to be a lot bigger revenue source with some new stipulations that were put in place over a decade ago. That revenue has definitely dropped, but it is definitely something that our schools depend on for operations.
So now we have Adidas and Coca-Cola, 2 very big names for our school system.
Yep.
Awesome. Any questions? Out of county transfer, number 1.
All right, so out-of-county transfer 1, the board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. This student was suspended for vandalism. According to policy 6.318, the board may deny admissions of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under the suspension or expulsion. Director of Schools' recommendation in this situation is to admit into the zoned school to begin the 23 school year because their suspension period would be completed by the time the school year begins.
Can I ask a question on this
Yeah.
one? I guess I'm just a little bit confused because it looks like they were at a different school district, but they now live in our school district?
That's the way all of them are, well, not all of them, the majority of them are is when they move into our districts, well, that's when they have the ability to apply to come into our school system.
Right, but I guess being that his suspension would be up, I guess I'm a little confused why we would have to approve that for next school year if his suspension is over and he lives in the district.
Probably wouldn't, but the parent requested it for them to go ahead and know where they're going for sure.
Okay.
Good questions and good answers. So number 2.
So number 2, board's been requested to admit a transfer student from another school system under discipline. The student was expelled for assault of a teacher and staff, and according to policy 6.318, the board may deny admissions of any student except those in state custody when a student transfers from another school system while under suspension or expulsion. Recommendation for this student is to deny admission.
Any questions? And of course, Ms. Ridley's here this week if you have any questions before Thursday's meeting. Number 10, Health Services.
Number 10, Ms. Grimm, will you come up too while I'm reading this just to be able to answer any questions if needed to? So this is our contract renewal for Stellar Therapy Services. The Stellar contract for the Nursing Medicaid Reimbursement Program in Rutherford County Schools is up for annual renewal. The TennCare billing guidelines for school-based nursing services were last revised in July 2022. Included in these changes is a requirement that in order to bill for services, a nurse practitioner, physician's assistant, or MD must provide clinical oversight of the school nurses providing these services for students. Stellar can provide these oversight services and will serve as the billing provider for the nursing services. Their administrative fee is 20% of total revenues received. Medically necessary covered services in the IEP or IHP that are ordered by the primary care physician or treating provider may be reimbursed. Services that are reimbursable include the following: assessment and treatment of acute and chronic illnesses, blood glucose monitoring and testing, tracheostomy care and suctioning, colostomy care, catheterization, administration of oral medication, O2 saturation monitoring, G-tube feeding, wound care, nebulizer treatment, and medication administration for medically fragile students as identified in the IEP or IHP. Just as reference, we're still receiving monthly checks in this school year. As of last week, we'd received $29,262.75. So, anything you want to add to that?
You
What
did
it
very well
serves?
with all of those.
There's a lot.
Yes. No, we do bill for services. We're only, according to the current Tennessee guidelines, able to bill for 1 nursing visit per day on any of these students that have TennCare. So even if we do 3 tube feedings and a cath on a student, which would be 4 interactions, we're only able to bill 1, but that's fine. We're generating revenue for the district, so It's great. Stellar is one of the biggest pluses with them is they do provide that medical oversight that is required for Medicare billing. They also will review all of our protocols, nursing protocols, just to make sure that they are within line, and not just protocols for this, but all of our protocols. So they did find a few things last year that they recommended that needed to be updated for new best practice guidelines. So it's a great service.
So, and we're still, cannot require them to fill out the paperwork for reimbursement. We're still, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Let us know if you can think of anything so we can be reimbursed for that, so we can help you take care of that.
We do have to have parent permission to bill, so
Okay.
that is part of Stellar, is their paperwork, because we do have to have that on file.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about the nurses extensively with the raises and everything, and just the insulin, you know, the students that have to have the nurses to calculate their insulin, you know, they may see them 3 times a day, certainly for breakfast and lunch. So they do a lot for us.
And right now, law just allows us to bill the TennCare, so we're not able to bill private insurance. So just a small percentage of students, but it does, you know, it adds up.
It does, it does.
So are we having issues with parents trying to give you permission so that we can bill for the services? Is there any opportunity there that we can?
I don't think it's a problem. I just think some parents just don't necessarily want to sign that permission. And we do a very good job, the nurses do a very good job of explaining it. It is at no cost to the parent. It doesn't affect their insurance in any way. It doesn't deduct from their amount that they are, you know, allotted. So they do try to do a good job of explaining it. But you just do have some of those parents that just will not sign that permission. But we have that with all kinds of things.
Sure, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Groom. So the next one is the agreement with Ascension.
So agreement with Ascension St. Thomas to provide staff hepatitis B vaccines. We're required by Board Policy 5.402, our exposure control plan, and OSHA to offer hepatitis B vaccines to employees who are at high risk of occupational exposure. In the past, we utilized our MedPoint clinics to offer this service. With a change to our new insurance policy, we have sought a partnership with a provider that will be able to provide this service. Ascension St. Thomas has agreed to provide these vaccines to employees at no cost to the employee and bill RCS directly. Total cost to RCS is anticipated to be no more than $20,000. It's not a requirement of the employee, we just have to offer it to them. And since it was covered beforehand, we felt like it was the appropriate thing to do to cover now.
Since we used to go to a little tiny building, I had to go get this done. Are they gonna come to us, or do they have to go to the hospital?
It's St. Thomas Ascension on New Salem, is that right? No, not New Salem. Where is it?
Right now, we're discussing the Fortress location of the Ascension St. Thomas Urgent Care. So it would just be one place locally in the county that they would go to. They don't have to schedule an appointment. It would be a walk-in visit.
That's great.
And we can post something out on our page with that information. Number 11.
All right, number 11, Facilities and Construction, tab 5. This has already come before the board a little bit over a year ago, but it's an update. So a request for Siegel land purchase by TDOT. The state of Tennessee through TDOT has revised the Thompson Lane Road widening project. In doing so, the amount of land has changed by a small fraction, and the land has been revalued. TDOT's requesting to purchase 0.22 acres and offers $58,100 for the land. Land is valued at $95,000 per acre. They also are offering $7,230 to RCS to relocate all signage in the affected areas. Engineering Construction has reviewed the request and recommends we move forward. Total funds to RCS will be $65,330. This will move Siegel High School's sign, and that's what part of the funding is for. The land was valued, I believe, at around $30,000 the last time it was valued, so we did get a couple extra $1,000 from this.
So it was I'm sorry.
It was originally around $30,000. I can go back and find the exact motion, but it did go up.
And then it went up to $95,000, so we're selling it at the $95,000 price. So it just shows that land is gonna be really difficult to find at less than 85, so at least we're making money, so that's good.
That we are.
All right, here's the Great.
Yep.
There's
So-
nobody here today. It's a huge announcement.
Smyrna High School Fieldhouse Addition request. Principal Sherry Sutherland has requested to authorize the school to build an addition to the existing field house. The addition will consist of 8,080 square feet for a new weight room, administrative office space, and a gathering lobby. The project's being designed and managed by Dow Smith Construction and funded by Smyrna Ready Mix and Hollingsheads. Engineering Construction has been involved throughout the process and recommends approval. You'll notice something different is we are not actually accepting funds for this, so it'll all be run through Smyrna Ready Mix and Dow Smith for the construction of the project. That allows, we've had some conversation this year around the turf field went to Fund 177 and Smyrna had to go get permission anytime they wanted to get a soccer goal, so this removes that. We want to say a huge thank you to Dow Smith and to Smyrna Ready Mix and Dr. Sutherland for working through this. Our first kind of projected cost is $4.5 to $5 million
It's unbelievable.
of donation.
That's an incredible donation.
Send cards, parents, send cards, flowers, food.
And it is not going to be just like a steel building. It's going to be brick that matches the brick facade of the school.
Incredible.
Any questions? We'll move to Rocky Fork Middle.
All right, Rocky Fork Middle Athletic Field water line request. Principal Jennifer Clark has requested to install a 1 1/4 inch water line with 3 connections for the athletic fields. Contractors recommended the pipe size. Engineering Construction will leave it up to the schools for the size and recommends approval at no cost to the board. Cost for this request is $8,900 and will come from the school's general athletic funds. That's a little bit different of a wording from Mr. Lee. Usually it says recommends approval. We normally do a 2-inch pipe. This is 1 1/4 because that's what the contractor recommends for it being a smaller site. If they had to go back and add it later on, then that would be at the cost of the school as well. So no risk to the board, but they're trying to do a little bit cheaper than a larger high school.
But it's going to solve the problem that they're
Well, we
complaining about.
we don't provide irrigation for our
Right.
middle schools, so middle schools have to fundraise themselves to do this.
Right, but this is going to help connect a water line
Yes.
to it if they, so let's have the battle.
Yes.
Any questions?
Whoever the former principal was there just didn't raise enough money to get that done, I guess. That was
Well,
me.
you
if
should have stayed
That was me
longer
if you didn't
then.
know.
Should have stayed longer.
Number 12.
All right, so number 12, we already talked about the 22-23 final cleanup budget amendments. We'll have those to you on Thursday. Next is a July 4th holiday, and this is something I would like to request for us to look at in policy next year. So motion to set a 10-hour workday for the 4th of July Independence Day holiday pay purposes for all 12-month RCS employees currently on a 4-day work week during the summer months. During the summertime and after school year is finished, numerous 12-month RCS employees shift to a 10-hour-a-day, 4-day work week. Currently, these employees would have to use 2 hours of vacation time along with 8 hours of holiday pay to have the entire day off for recognition of Independence Day. I copied this motion exactly from what we did last year. And so a couple years ago, employees who were off on the 4th of July had to turn in 2 hours of leave day, and that just didn't seem right to make them take 2 hours per day that we required them to be off. So
Makes sense.
we weren't open, and yet they still had to take leave.
Number 13.
All right, number 13 is instruction tab 7. So these are moving forward with purchases for next year. So request to purchase the following programs to start the new school year. Approval to purchase Easy CBM. Curriculum Instruction Department is requesting to purchase Easy CBM, an online assessment system. Easy CBM is an online system which provides reading and math benchmark and progress monitoring assessments and reports for district, school, and teacher use. This license is $4.35 per student for 30,500 students, for a total cost of $132,675 for the 23-24 school year to be funded through GP funds. This is one you're going to hear a lot about over the next couple of weeks because it's our universal screener that we use for all of our elementary school students. So we want to go ahead and have it already purchased in case students need to have and come back in July to do additional screening. This is also the screener we use for all identification of students with learning disability to progress monitor to see where they are.
It's awesome.
And something I do want to bring up is that next year, we will still have Easy CBM. We were probably going to have to move to Ames Web for one screener for our third grade students. Part of the State Department's third grade retention for next year is that you can only use Ames Web, even though they have other state approved ones. So we'll have to use it just for one. Did I get that correct, Dr. Chastain?
For third grade only?
And that's not confirmed yet, but that's what we were told previously.
Third grade only, we're only going to do it in the spring.
That could,
Yes, because if we will just do for third grade Ames Web, well, we probably actually will do both so that we're able to track their growth for it. But that is truly, the state has, how many vendors they have approved right now?
I was just talking with Dr. Gullion before the meeting regarding this specifically, and the plan, so Ames Web historically has been a difficult platform to operate. It's not as user-friendly for parents and teachers. So the district would prefer to stay with Easy CBM because it's a better tool. So that would be our K-3 universal screener. If the state requires Ames Web, we would have to have at least one screener score to serve as the score for appeals, like kind of what we're in right now.
Is it still owned by Pearson as well? Thought so.
Oh, so this is by Pearson? Pearson owns everything.
Starting to see the connections. Student information system, testing, universal screening, textbooks.
what was the name of that? Ames Web?
Ames Web.
Ames Web.
AIM,
All the money.
Yeah.
all the money.
Exactly.
See where the contributions have been made.
A lot of money.
Is that the only vendor that does all of this? Is Pearson?
No, but they're
it in
the
the
only one
world?
that's,
That is very, I want to be with Pearson, the vendor.
Ames Web is the only one the state is choosing for third grade.
But there's complaints about this. It's not easy to use. Parents and for parents and teachers, and that districts prefer Easy CBM. Isn't there like a feedback portal that can be added to say,
Part of the state's contract, and the State Department Department of Education doesn't write their own contracts. It has to go through the Office of Procurement. So
yeah. Still, but if they're if they're shopping for vendor, I don't know. I would think they would be a feedback portable.
To Pearson.
Huh?
They're not going to shop it. They give everything to Pearson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like it, so.
Pretty much. Right?
pretty accurate.
Approval for purchase of MobiMax.
So Instruction Department is requesting to renew MobiMax, an online personalized learning system for pre-K-8 students. MobiMax finds and assists with learning gaps with the power of personalized learning. MobiMax's adaptive curriculum creates an individualized education plan for each student, allowing gifted students to progress as quickly as they like, simultaneously ensuring that remedial students get the extra time they need. Total cost of MobiMax for 23-24 is $39,086 to be funded through GP funds, and all these are part of our general purpose school budget. Just any time, and I brought this up last year, but I like to bring it up every year. Anytime we are using a platform, yes, you could go in and find prohibited concepts to look at. We also make sure that if we find any of those, that we remove access to those so students can't access those. As more concepts get added, more lessons get added, that's something that we always have to work through, but we have an entire instructional technology team that works with teachers to do that.
Pearson owned this one too.
This one they don't. They may own the next one, but I don't think they own this
MobiMax,
one.
probably.
Nearpod. Approval of Nearpod.
All right, Instruction Department requesting a renewed Nearpod, an online student engagement platform. Nearpod's cross-platform and easy-to-use way to engage your students with interactive activities, connect them through collaborative discussion, and gain instant insight into student learning through formative assessments. Total cost of Nearpod for 23-24 is $221,138.25 to be funded through general purpose funds. What makes a lot of these so expensive is the per student cost. We're just so large.
Yeah, I was going to ask how
Just so
many
large.
seats are we getting out of
The entire district.
Oh, good. So that's 50, close to 50,000? Wow.
And all teachers.
Insurance update.
Dr. Anthony, Brian, anything on insurance?
Brian went to a training that he had some additional updates.
Yeah, so I went to the annual fiscal workshop at the Embassy Suites, which is hosted by the Divisions of Local Finance and Federal Programs and Oversight and
That
Benefits.
sounds really exciting, Brian. Really exciting.
It's awesome. It was fun for me anyway. But Benefits Administration was there from the state, and they gave an insurance update. So the biggest takeaway from that was, so in October of 22, they put out an estimate for 23-24 of how much the premium increase would be, the aggregate increase, that is, not each individual plan, but overall, the aggregate increase. And I believe it was before we went up with the state, but I believe they put out a little over 6% increase on the aggregate of the insurance plans. Today or yesterday, whenever I was in the meeting, they put out that it was only going to be 5.1% aggregate increase. So it's going to be actually lower than what they projected, you know, in October of last year. So they'll have another projection in October of this year for 24-25. That's basically how we try to start to budget that. But it can either come in lower, but it will not be higher. So that's one of the things. So if they project next year, it's going to be 6%. It could be lower than that, but it will not go higher than that. So because they do build up reserves, sort of like we build up reserves in our GP fund balance. So that's what helps them keep those that increase lower, as long as those reserves. And you know, seems like the trend right now is a lot better than what it was during COVID. So there was a big dip there, and so now it seems like things are starting to level themselves out a little bit more as far as claims go. So that's all I have.
Still much better than the 8, 10, 12% we used to get years and years ago.
So a couple of things. One, let's start with budget. So there's another budget committee meeting this coming Thursday. So that budget committee is really looking at all the things they've looked at so far. They had those meetings set. Our general purpose school budget 141 that was balanced was passed by budget unanimously. The 177 was passed 4-2. I do still have concerns about, up until June 26th, until the tax rate is set, I have concerns that at the very last second, it could be, how could we lower the ability to have a tax increase? The easiest place to pull from usually is the school system. They couldn't necessarily pull pennies from 141 because of maintenance of effort, but 177 does concern me. There was some discussion last Thursday about pulling 9 cents from that right off the bat, which would leave us with only a penny. And we've talked about it quite a bit, but for the public to know, there have been 5 pennies in that originally. The bull and nickel, we added 7 cents to it last year at a GP. And then we have reduced our ask of the county by 11 cents overall, 10 for 141 and 1 penny from 177. So we've covered our debt. Board members, if you hear any of that 177 is what we use for capital projects. So if that gets pulled, we get even further behind on HVAC, roofing, all those different types of things, which we've tried to target and done a nice job targeting, but if that gets pulled, we'll have our...
And I appreciate Chairman Gooch.
Absolutely, he was.
Very volatile about, this is why we had this fund. We cannot raid this fund. They would have to come to us if even a minor thing came. So, and I think Robert P. also. So I appreciate them kind of explaining why the fund exists to some of the new people.
And we've developed a very good relationship, as you guys know, with our county commission. It's just always a concern up until the tax rate is set. So I'm hopeful that won't happen, but any advocacy we continue to do as you hear things, be appreciated.
10 o'clock on the 26th?
Is when the tax rate is set, yes.
So it starts at 9, but by 10 o'clock it should be.
By 10,
Okay.
hopefully.
You can breathe.
Hopefully. The only other couple things, I will have a new, I've gone blank, org chart to look at on Thursday. So we looked at it at the retreat that we had, but I'll have an updated org chart because we didn't actually end up requesting all positions that were on that org chart and simplified some of it. We will have Dr. Ralston to talk about behavior along with Dr. Chastain a little bit on Thursday. And then Dr. Chastain, you ready to talk a little bit about third grade? I know that it's Thursday, maybe a better day to talk about third grade. So I appreciate you, Elizabeth, and our entire team, because you guys are continually have to work through, and our principals having conversations they didn't expect to. So.
Okay, so the update. As you know, we had the data got released on the 19th. We kind of went through that whole process a couple weeks ago. We informed families based on the appeal criteria that was given to us from the state, which simply said, you know, the law just states that the appeals, the rules will be created by the state board. And so you look at the state board as far as any guidance, it just said score at or above the 40th percentile on the approved universal screener. For us, with Easy CBM, there's no composite. So there used to be a conversion chart on attached with Easy CBM that they actually removed because they were afraid it was going to cause confusion. So we actually get reports on 3 different metrics. So every time the child takes this universal screener, they get these reports. So they're tracking these 3 metrics and percentiles for K3. So the ones we get are passage reading fluency, vocabulary, and proficient reading and comprehension. As this law is written, you would think that those would be very important measures and taken separately. The proficient reading and comprehension would be kind of the ultimate of this child is a proficient reader. The problem is that not only were our appeals delayed, as you know, that it closed, even though we've had these numbers, we've had them. So then it opened on the 30th, which put our parents behind. So we started generating appeals. As a district, we have still not received any reports on approved appeals. We received some reports on ones that had incorrect information, so we're updating those as we go. However, yesterday, parents started contacting our principals and us with concerns that their appeals had been denied, despite the fact that they had received a letter from us saying they were eligible. Upon further investigation, it appears that the state has made a decision to average those 3 percentiles, which is completely mathematically incorrect. It goes against the advice of literacy experts. As a team, we met and discussed whether that would be a possibility months ago, and we said that would be completely inappropriate. So we'll just take the highest of these scores. If the student scores at or above the 40th percentile, we will issue them an appeal, and that's the guidance we will give the parents. That has since changed. So not only are they taking the average, they are also rounding down. So we've had several that have received, if you take those averages, they're at 39.7, 39.8. We had a 39.9 today, and they're being denied. Again, all of this separately would be manageable, but as we're at this super tight timeline, I mean, we're getting, and I know I keep saying this, but, calls from parents that are angry, crying. I mean, their kids are crying. I was at summer camps yesterday. The 3rd graders think they failed. I mean, it's just it's a gut check. Again, if this is about helping kids read, there are plenty of ways to make this process a lot easier for families and teachers and districts. So that's what I'm imploring everybody is please help, let us know how we can help make this better, because this is unsustainable in terms of the stress and the continuous, it's unacceptable. The work that has been done or not done by Pearson and the Department of Education is really unacceptable. The screener, the pretest that we have to give for summer camps for 3rd graders, they have to show 5% growth between a pretest and a post-test. This is only 16 days of work that we have these students to provide this opportunity. The rising 4th graders aren't loading properly, and we're unable to give the pretest. So this is 2 days now that Pearson has not been able to get this appropriately linked, so our teachers won't show up, our kids won't show up, we have no way to give them the pretest. So now we're 2 days in, and the kid has been learning for 2 days, and now when are we going to be able to give the pretest and then have to show that 5% growth? If they don't show 5% growth, we could be facing this same kind of anxiety-inducing cycle where we're going to have to tell parents they didn't score high enough, so now after all this, we're going to have to put them back into 3rd grade. And it is, the impact that it's having on actual kids, parents, teachers, principals, it's hard to watch. So it can be so much better. You let us know what we can do to help, because this is unacceptable.
And I want to say one thing is that I sent an email to the commissioner, because they emailed me, and I gave that information to you about all that. What will happen to a kid that got denied? I haven't gotten a response yet. So in the circumstance, in the evidence that a kid goes through the process and they get denied, there's a question that's in limbo. Do they get held back, or though they have the option to be promoted to fourth grade with the caveat that they're going to take extra services.
Yes.
But that's not clear
Okay.
at the moment if that is the option to do, is to automatically say yes, because the deadline has already been done. The summer, we're into summer learning, and we don't have that option of.
So what we're telling parents, and if I'm speaking to parents right now, like, this is a totally different message. So we still have plenty of options for our students. If that appeal gets denied, we can still enroll them in tutoring next year. The problem is that's after school, and it's 2 days a week. The other problem is if this sheer number of students goes into tutoring next year, which is a great program, but that then diverts all other services we're able to put for the students where we can truly make a difference. You know, your K2 window is where we truly can make a difference with students grasping phonemic awareness and being able to read. So by the time they are third graders, they are proficient readers. And I just hate to see any diversion of services as an outcome of just a process that's a little bit broken.
So if they get the letter, do they contact the school?
Yeah, I mean, they can
that what
contact either the contact information on the letter comes to us, and we're fielding those, and that is the primary place to get up-to-date information. Principals are also well-versed and able to assist, but they're getting so many calls too. I'm happy to just have them come to us, and we'll help them within the parameters of the law figure out a way that they can get to fourth grade. Unfortunately, there's a host of scenarios that are playing out that are really hard for us to hear because we don't have any solutions. And those are, like we kind of discussed, parenting plans or other things that take students out of district, and we have no way of getting them enrolled in a camp there, just like we have no way of enrolling. I mean, it happens for us too. Like, there's kids from out of district that are here for the summer, and we can't enroll them in our camp because we can't get them in our system. So, homeschool, private school, there's just a myriad of examples where kids are going to get hung up. One other thing I was looking at a specific student today, and it just spoke to how kind of crazy this is. We said he was eligible for the appeal based on he was over the 40th percentile in at least one of those categories. He's in the approaching category. He was actually in the 80th percentile on the hardest measure and above the 60th on a separate, but something happened with the vocabulary section and it tanked. And so now that kid is getting lumped in where he's not eligible for appeal. It's just like, it's just an inappropriate combination of scores mathematically to lead to that result. But again, happy to help if there's a way we can help make this better.
Has Pearson said anything about when we're going to have this pretest?
So our assessment team is in contact. I mean, there's a whole thread of emails from each day. Unfortunately, this is nothing new. We're used to putting in tickets for errors, but the thing that makes this so much worse is that it's just such a tight timeline, and with each passing hour, it closes opportunities for families. So they're hoping that it uploads correctly tomorrow. That's the word we got.
Yeah, because, it would seem to me, you have 16 days summer camp. And so each day that you get closer, that difference is going to be smaller and smaller
Absolutely.
and smaller. So you could go through summer camp, actually have participated, actually have learned, improved, but it won't show up on the test because the time frame too short.
You're absolutely correct.
I will add one thing that's been frustrating this week is we've had several parents call, and we're going to give makeup time because we have makeup Fridays built in. We've had a lot of parents who were upset about having to choose between Vacation Bible School and summer camp. And those have been some unfortunate conversations this week about. So
Maybe we need to post our delegations' phone numbers and give that to the parents and
Exactly.
explain some of
What's
these.
going on? Yep.
I'd say the Tennessee Department of Education, but they're continually having a lot of turnover. So they had 2 more announced
Yep.
today that they were leaving. So
They're leaving.
You know,
There's a lot
Pearson should really be experts at this by now, because this is not the first state that's incorporated this. They've done this in Mississippi, other states, so they should know how to handle the situation. It shouldn't just the burden shouldn't fall on us. They should already have this thing worked out. It should work like a charm. if they're going to implement these kind of procedures.
I think everyone is in agreement. The question is, because of the turnover and the influx that's going on right now at the department, if there's someone that is the gatekeeper of that, so that when tickets are being submitted, that the state is handling that and pushing it through Pearson. So, I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts right now that we're not sure what's going on in the department.
I think if they would just leave our teachers alone and let them teach, our teachers know. Our teachers know.
You bring
We
up,
could save a lot of money. Our teachers know, even with just the easy CBM, teachers know.
and you bring up a great point. We've gotten some preliminary data back on all of our grades and all of our subjects on just straight achievement levels, and you will be happy to know that we improved in multiple areas without a punitive law in place to tell us to improve. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that, you're right, teachers know.
So hopefully there won't be a math testing requirement, because that was
There's
said
one
last
coming.
time. I mean, but if we're going to let teachers teach, then kind of defeats the purpose a little bit.
It's frustrating because, you know, that's what you hear when you're out here talking to your constituents is less testing. You know, here we are creating more and more tests, and we put more and more emphasis on these tests. If we just go back to education and just do the basics of educating these students and give these teachers the freedom to do that, it would happen. But we just keep shooting ourselves in the foot by trying to raise the bar, and it really gets us nowhere. What's the physical impact of this? No one's even discussing that. I guarantee you this is a huge cost to the state, what we're going through right now.
Ms. Rosales?
Yes, I want to remind everyone how this past General Assembly of what was submitted to the General Assembly this time around for legislation in regards to third grade retention. We had bills to obviously broaden data scope for making retention and promotion decisions, which that included the universal screener. The other thing that there was a bill that was presented that's really important to be mindful of is that there was a bill for the appeal process to establish more specifics of what this process was going to look like and give more guidance to the districts. And then the other thing that was another bill that was proposed was early reading proficiency detection, so that it wasn't just isolating one grade band year, the third grade, to determine whether the child was going to be promoted to fourth grade because of the proficiency in reading, that it will look into identifying this earlier, like in the first grade and second grade. And there were other things that were not necessarily on a bill, but considerations to look into as amendment proposals, and that is more guidance in regards to the TCAP test results deadline, because the fact that the tests are being, the results of the scoring are being delivered to the districts towards the very end of the school year, and then having to turn around in a short amount of window time to try to make all these decisions, just to help, just asking them to see if they could move that up a little bit. And then retest specifics, guidance on that, and in regards to how districts will have more information on that. So when I went to the Capitol that this time around, those are the things that I presented to our delegation to consider. And what happened is that, I forget how many bills, but there was a lot of bills that was just on third grade retention. And so the delegation decided that it was going to be easier to use one bill as a caption bill to roll up all these. So with that, as a result of that, what made it into and got passed was that they added that the broadened scope of not just adding the TCAP portion if you're scoring on approaching, but also to add the universal screener for those who are scoring on the 50th percentile. And then to authorize parents to give consent for the schools to do the appeals on their behalf. And then also, if a child was retained within kindergarten to third grade, that they will be receiving tutoring service for that upcoming year. And then tutoring services funding that was added for that, where the state was going to give everyone specific tutoring services to use, and to use that at $7 million. So all that to say, these are the 4 things that that got added into the whole host of things. And so there's still things that need to be fleshed out, it sounds like. So that's all.
Yes, sure.
The problem with that was it didn't go into effect till next year. So we're
Right, exactly. So, yes, sorry. Yes, and that's another valid point, is that, yes, it went into effect we did vote, got voted this year, but these does not go into effect till the following year. And thank you for clarifying that. And it sounds like they changed the criteria from on approaching in the TCAP portion of the ELA from the 40th percentile to the 50th percentile. So they even moved that up more. And they're supposed to be able to be promoted without an appeals, without anything. It's an automatic. So there's still going to be kids that are going to be scoring in the 40th percentile that are going to be considered not proficient for reading. So, but that was what was presented, and that was what I spoke with all of our reps in the months that I was there. Okay, so I just want to remind everyone about what was done.
Thank you, Ms. Rosales. So tomorrow we have the last day of the reunification. Ms. Patty, she was in here earlier, and she said it's going to be from like 8 a.m. to 12, gentlemen?
Yeah, I went this morning.
Yes, okay. 8 a.m. to 12, so if you come after, they're going to put you to work.
I went this morning. I was there for...
So 8 a.m. to 12. So also, Thursday, we will be having an executive session before the school board meeting. We're meeting here at 5, and Ms. Patty has some security information for us to cover. Also, I was tapped for a committee at the state of Tennessee. Evidently, they're reworking the ESSA.
our ESSA plan, our
ESSA plan.
accountability. It's a big deal, so congratulations.
Well, I have to learn all this. I didn't realize it was 400 pages, but we had our first meeting yesterday. So I'm sorry, Dawn. So we had our first meeting yesterday, and I did find out that I'm on the career readiness, but also Ben Torres from TSBA has been named to one of the committees, to the accountability committee. So we will know some other people on there. So we're going to work on this from now until the fall. I'm assuming to go into legislation next year when they go back into session.
It's a big deal. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Mr. Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
you have anything else?
No, ma'am, the training went really well today. I know that Ms. Bratton was there for the morning at least, and we went until, almost 4 o'clock this afternoon? And he advised everyone to wear comfortable shoes and clothing tomorrow because they will be doing a lot of stepping. He said his high mark is 17,000 steps during these drills. So, and the news will be there in the morning to cover some of this, so we're looking forward to a full morning.
Outside, or we're going to be inside?
Just you, Ms. Maxwell. The rest of us, we in the air conditioning.
I want to
Rockville did that for you
Or the
because it's not
beginning
Riverdale.
timing.
We're getting you ready for your camp next week. Did you announce your
Oh,
camp?
that's what I was going to say.
Oh,
What'd you do
camp
with your
starts on Monday, and I opened it up. I got 2 more kiddos over the weekend, but we're closed now. We got 20, so good number.
We will be inside, he said, most of the time.
Okay.
So,
So a clarification in the reunification drills, because I've gotten some text messages from county commissioners. The email is set from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
She said this afternoon I saw Ms. Patty.
So is it caught up at 12?
8 to 12.
And is it drop-in anytime? Okay, perfect. That was,
An email.
okay, great, because there's a bit of a confusion on that, and I was going to get clarification on it.
and tomorrow's supposed to be very visual. Today was a lot of classroom work, but tomorrow's supposed to be a lot of hands-on, a lot of movement, we hope, things like that. So it's the better day to come.
Dr. Sullivan has one more thing.
Yeah, and so I forgot to do this in the director's update. There's been some discussion around Springs Charter School, so know that we are working on it. There was some conversation, and it went to the Budget Committee to approve some type of bond, private bond funding for them from a different committee that exists. So just know that we're aware of it and working on it, because that is not something that we are going to look to support. That's our job is for, yes, we authorize them, but our job is to look out for our county budget, and I'm not necessarily interested in endorsing any other type of budget funds for that. So be happy to discuss that with you. Just didn't want you to be blindsided in case somebody asks.
Motion to adjourn? Anybody? We're adjourned.